I grew up in a small community where girls aged between 12 and 13 went through female genital mutilation, where girls got married early. So I grew up thinking and knowing that that was the way it's supposed to be. And by the time I was 10 years old, I was lucky enough to get an opportunity for an education. As I grew up, even though I was educated, I didn't have the right information about my sexual reproductive health. By the time I was 22, I had 2 kids, and I still had not heard about contraceptives. The reason I founded Dandelion was because I wanted something better for the women in my community, because there are many women who, just like me at that tender age, have never heard about contraceptives, regardless of whether they're educated or not. So imagine I went to college. Imagine a woman in a rural community who has never been to school. She has no chance of having this information. And the moment you don't have information about your body as a woman, there are other things that come to play. Gender-based violence. You go through female genital mutilation, not because you want to, but because the community expects that of you. So Dandelion Africa was founded to challenge these norms, to give women a chance to use their voices, to talk about issues that affect them. Rapid population growth, it's a challenging subject, especially in the community where I come from. If you ask someone, how many children do you have? They will tell you children are not gods, they cannot be counted. And in our communities, having a son is very important. So if you have 9 daughters, then your husband is most likely going to marry another wife until he gets a son. If a woman says, I only want to have 3 children, the man will say, I am the one who decides. And the more kids we have, the more larger the family is, the less the resources. There's pressure on the environment, especially because we use charcoal, we use firewood. So the larger the families, the more we consume. There's no provision to plant trees because trees cost money. So if an average family, one parent probably earns maybe $2 at most a day, what will be the priority for that family? It will not be buying trees to plant. So what you're seeing in Kenya and in the recent statistics is Kenya is becoming a desert. If we don't do something soon, I don't know if there'll be any resources left. Communities are beginning to realize that it is better and easier to have a smaller family, because then the ecosystem of the community works better. We're beginning to have social problems. A lot of girls falling off school because the parent is saying, I can't educate you, I have these 3 sons, and then they're married off at a very early age. And they're having babies at 15, 16. It's a never-ending circle of poverty. The biggest issue here is how do we alleviate poverty in our communities? The issue of sexual reproductive health and poverty is so interlinked in our community that if you don't address one, then the other one will never be addressed either. Right now we are probably reaching women who are 25, 26, in their 30s, at their ripe age. What if we had reached them earlier?
Within the age of?
The issue of giving contraceptives to young people has been one of the things that we've been talking about with Chase Africa and Population Matters. They fund all our medical outreaches, taking the service contraceptives to hard-to-reach communities. This is very important. Someone might ask, where is the government? Where are the hospitals? They're too far away. The roads are non-existent. Most of these women don't have time, really, to walk the 20 kilometers to go to the nearest facility. But the greatest challenge we've had is how men look at contraceptives, how men look at sexual reproductive health. When we go to a new village, they see there's a family planning tent. The men come and say, you will not give family planning in this village. And we have to go away and think about a strategy to come back. So usually we bring in men who advocate for family planning in the same community. And we have forums with men. We have a program called Boys for Change. And these are boys who are taught on female genital mutilation, contraceptives, menstruation as well. They are beginning to understand why it is important to have fewer kids, why it is important. I'll use the word allow their women to have contraceptives, allow their women to own property, why it is important to allow their women to own businesses. A lot of women, especially the ones who have already used contraceptives, from the last 3-4 years since we started being supported by Chase Africa and Population Matters, we have seen dramatic changes. Last year only we managed to give up to 8,000 women contraceptives, information, something that was not there before. We are unable to plan our families because we lack information. And we are unable to get information because we are too poor to access it. And the government will not do what it's supposed to do. And that is why organizations like Population Matters, Chase Africa, in partnership with Dandelion Africa, have to do this job.